Welcome to today's session, as I've said, on personal statements itself. So, this is really an incredibly important part of your whole college application. And I'm really excited today to guide you through the essentials of crafting this document, this heart of this application itself. So now you might be asking, right, why is the personal statement so crucial? So think of it, as I just said a couple of seconds ago, the heart of your application. While your grades, your test scores, your extracurricular activities go on to highlight your academic abilities and achievements and creates a list, your personal statement gives the admissions committee a proper window into what you really are as a person rather than a list of activities. It's your opportunities to tell your story, to show them what really drives you as a person, what you have learned in the overall high school time period, and where do you really hope to go with what you have is the crux of, I would say, the personal statement itself. So let's really dive in and explore what really makes that personal statement truly shine. But before, obviously, every in our sessions, before we get into that component of common application, which today we're discussing on your personal statement, we just have a quick look across at Let's Unbound, the organization that is conducting the webinar today. So Let's Unbound began with a focus on skill building, empowering elementary, middle school students with STEM, life skills, and mentorship. As these students really progressed to high school, they started looking out and seeking for college admissions guidance. And that's where we responded. We evolved our services to really seamlessly integrate the storytelling through applications in our already well established mentoring programs. By combining personalized learning, skill development, and strategic admission support, we now guide students right from their early academic years to top global universities. Today, we have impacted more than 4,000 students across 25 countries, delivering more than 125,000 hours of expert mentoring. Our commitment to excellence has earned us 4.9 over a 5 global rating. We have partnered with some of the really renowned names when it comes to helping students on their academic journey, and an institute really known for it, one of the largest private bodies run by a student organization, Harvard Students Agencies. And at the same time, we also have partnered with a really fantastic university when it comes to preparations of digital prep with Arizona's University Prep Digital. At Let's Unbound, we don't just prepare students for exams. We really prepare them for life. We really prepare them for their eventual professions that they'll be actually getting into. The people that are behind our organization, Amol Patil, you can see him on the left. He is an entrepreneur. He's an education visionary with experience ranging from Tata across to Exceed, which is India's largest edtech platform. Amol has helped scale impactful education solutions across 2,000 schools and in 6 countries, impacting more than 250,000 students. He's known for his ability to blend business thinking and on-ground school realities, and has really helped a lot of startups from IIT Bombay and beyond, and has really helped them to succeed within that education space. Nishant, who you can see on your right, he is the mentor, the educator, and the brains behind many of our learning pathway and many of those aspects that we'll also go on to share on today. With 14 plus years of experience across academia and history, he has counseled more than 1,000 students and has designed curriculum solutions, at from right K-12 to executive MBA programs. He's an alumnus of SP Jain, a top-rated teacher, a proud mentor of change under Atal Innovation Mission Niti Aayog. His philosophy let the students choose their path, and that's something very crucial about the presentation that we're holding today in terms of that personal statement. So overall, together they combine experience and vision that has really shaped the way that we approach this overall aspect of college counseling. Right now, just giving you a quick introduction about myself. So, I have spent the last decade within counseling and consultancy. I have represented organizations as Citibank, Standard Charter within the investment space, and Jaguar Land Rover within automotive industry. I have worked with Crimson Education and Added Education within the EdTech space, and that's the overall experience that I do, come across with. So now moving into the presentation itself today. So this is the flow that we will be largely moving across with. We'll firstly try to look at the platform, the application platform itself, right? At the point when I was telling you that, these applications, the personal statement that we are discussing today is going to be really focused around the US applications, right? Which is more importantly around your narratives, what's the components that goes into the common application. And at the same time, I'll give you a bit of hint of the other platforms as well. And then one thing that we do always discuss before we move on to that specific component of the common app, the weightages, and we'll then move into the different platforms that they are within personal statements. We then move into that PS list, the personal statement list. What are the different things that we will be looking across at it, the different platforms? What is a personal statement? What are the format and restrictions? Why does it matter? Why are admission officers really looking for it? What is the right prompt and common mistakes? And I'll conclude this session by showing you a really interesting part or a passage from a essay that was accepted to Stanford University. The application was for computer science itself, but the passage which I have really cherry-picked is for computer science to really close the narrative in which we have started our conversation on. We will then move across to our approach and then the resources that we always leave at the end of our session. So now just moving across itself to the university list that what the various admission officers are looking for. If I could just, give me a second itself, I'm having a bit of a technical issue with my system. I'll just reshare my screen. Yeah, sorry. So with that sorted out, we'll just start this again at the part of what are US university admission officers looking for. So this, to understand the well lopsided profile, it's very important to understand one of the most peculiarities about the US admissions, which really differs it from India. And as a matter of fact, differs the US application from almost every other country. This is the part of the declarations of your major. Throughout the globe, wherever you apply for an undergrad degree, that is one of the informations that go across. For all of the parents who are joining me from India, you very well aware that once the majors are decided, that even differentiates the entrance exam that you'd be giving. For example, joint entrance exam cannot be used for medicine, right? NEET cannot be used for engineering. Now, within USA, you would see that there's only one thing, SAT and ACT used right across. Why is that so? Why is that they're looking for a well lopsided profile and there's no statement that comes across saying looking for a scholar? The whole reason is the point that I said, the declaration of major, which is not mandatory for a US application. So, from an admission officer's point of view, if I'm talking about the narrative before going into the whole SAT and ACT conversation, in terms of the narrative, the admission officer does not have a direct connection in every application that these are the list of activities and this is the area where where the student would like to major in. So, with that information not being available, the overall admission is purely based on your personality. Another whole aspect about US admissions, the change of majors is such a easy or a commonly used aspect that the whole admission cannot be based that the student wants to only study this one major, and thus the selection is supposed to happen as per that. So they look at your overall profile. Now, it's not also a statement that they're just looking at a well-rounded profile. I have very deliberately used this word well lopsided profile. A well lopsided profile means that the student needs to have activities in different areas, right? So that's one stroke of the student's profile. Let's say participation in music, participation in some academic activities, participation in fine arts, with a vertical stroke of, let's say, participation in sports. And when I say the vertical stroke, what am I really meaning? This, I'm saying that the student has got an extreme interest in one of the sports. He spends a lot of time in it, has excelled in it, and can be some place where he shows a lot of meritoriousness. But the other activities can go ahead and only be a participation. One of those common mistakes that comes across by using these wrong words of saying well-rounded is that parents start thinking that every aspect that a student needs to think across has to be of of a world-class quality, which is not true. You can have a lot of activities which are only going to be on a participation level, and a few activities that go on to a deliberate level of in-depthness. So that's the well lopsided profile that the admissions officer is looking for. Very crucial when you start to write your personal statement. So that really means you're not creating a list of just achievements. It's not a list of just creating activities that you intend to do and major in. It's a document that will speak about the personality that you represent. So that is the first thing that one needs to understand before we move on to this aspect. And as the people who have now joined me again, I think for the third time now on the Common Application series, this is our third presentation, which we have now in the last two sessions gone across the academics in detail, where you submit your SAT score, your grade 12 score, your transcripts from 9th till 11th. And at the same time, you do submit your 10 activities, which we had discussed in our previous presentation, academic, non-academic, both. Today's presentation is largely going to be around the Common App essay or the personal statement, the third thing that you can see across on your screen. And in the following presentations, we'll be discussing across on college essays and letters of recommendation. But all of these documents together are the important ones that you need to look across for these admissions, right? And the dates that you can see on the bottom, 1st of November is your early decision and early action cycle. This is when the number of applications are on the lowest. And this is where, a lot of you guys should be ready by, which tells you the 1st of November is the start of your 12th. It also pushes you a lot of narrative that, you need to start with your SAT early, need to have your personal statements done early. So you can really use this time period. Moving on to your regular time period of 1st of January, that's the regular application cycle. By this time, I guess all of you would be aware that you have not written your 12th exam. It just makes your overall profile all that very much important. Because even within academics, they've got a projected grade of your 12th and grades from 9 to 11. So your personal statement, your documents that you're really writing about yourself hold the key in these applications, because you'd realize you'd be getting your offers between Jan till March. The offers also predate the time that you're going to be giving your grade 12 examination itself. Now we will move on to look at the admissions or the whole common application, not just from, let's say, one platform. We want to also just look at the various different ones that we also will be discussing in terms of personal statement. So just to fill you up, let's suppose if you're going for the UC application, which is a different platform itself. Overall aspects are almost the same, what you can see on your screen. They do have the academics, but in terms of UC, you do not submit your SAT or ACT score, because as of date, your universities of California are SAT blind, or basically they're SAT ACT blind institutes. MIT would ask for the same aspect, so there's no change in terms of your academics when it comes to MITs or UTs. It's only the UCs. When you look into the second section of your activity list, there it changes a little bit more. Your UC list can go up till 20, but obviously, again, that's not mandatory in your Common App to also list up till 10. It's also not mandatory to list up till 20 in your UCs. The number of words do differ between your UCs and your Common Application activity list. But again, the overall agenda is the same. You still are going to be submitting a list of activities that you do. MIT is a little bit different in that terms, that the amount of entries are much more shorter. So you only talk about your top four activities, but with every activities, you're going to go up to 200 words each. Very different from, let's say, a common app where you're doing this in 150 characters per activity. UT Austin, on the other side, you could also just submit a resume and all of your activities will be taken. They do not really have a lot of character limits in that way. When it comes to personal statements, there are also differences. That's the heart of our conversation today, any which ways. So we will be looking at across in that way. Letters of recommendations, there are not much differentiations. So this is how you, as a family or as a parent or as a student, will be perceiving admissions, looking at admissions from your side. Now, regardless of the college that you're getting admitted to, this is how the admission officer is going to look at your profile. So it's going to put 40% weightages to your academics, 30% weightages to your extracurricular activities, 30% weightages to your overall application. So 60% of this journey are the various activities that you're going to be doing beyond your school, beyond your examination. So that's just to put, a whole perspective of how important even this personal statement document is, how it really connects your activities that you've spoken as the 30% there, your extracurricular and leadership, and how it really connects to the rest of your application. So quite an important aspect in that way. You could say within that 60%, this document itself would take at least 20-25% of the weightage. So just buckle up. Now we will move into trying to understand what are the different kind, how do different universities really ask for these personal narrative. We will first look at the different platforms themselves, and then we will look at, all of the just using the word of, let's say, common application personal statement. But beyond the next two slides, it really doesn't matter which platform you end up using, the narratives remain the same. But before we do so, we should just look at the various platforms that they typically, exist. So each platform has its own unique requirements for how the personal statement or its equivalent should be written and submitted. Understanding the differences in these requirements can really help you to tailor your application and the preparation very effectively. Now, the most common one and the most frequently one used, and how the name also says it out, the Common App. The Common App personal statement one is an essay. It's up to 650 words that you submit to all of the schools on your list. The essay is central to your application because it really gives you the chance to tell your personal story and share who you are beyond your numbers and figures and lists. It's crucial, it is very critical to be authentic and to really choose a topic that reflects the core value, your experiences, and how you have grown as a person. It should be a narrative that really highlights a pivotal number of moments or series of moments that has really gone on to shape your life. Now, the other one, Universities of California, the UC system. So instead of having one main personal statement, the UC system requires you to do four personal insight questions, which are typically called your PIQs. So you choose four out of eight available questions, and each response is really capped around 350 words. So if you see in those terms, the personal statement, once you've answered the PIQs, all four of them put together, go in much more depth than, let's say, a personal statement that Common App will provide you. But the Common App would give you one single heading. Here, you're going to be answering four different with a limitation of 350 in each. So that's how these differentiate. But if once we'll be moving forward, right, and we'll be discussing across at the formats, at the restrictions, you'll try to also see the similarities between all of them. Now, moving across, these PIQs collectively serve as your personal statement, and they are more focused way to present specific, let's say, aspects of your experiences themselves. The format is more direct, asking for specific insights into areas, let's say, like leadership, intellectual curiosity, challenges that you have specifically faced, and very much importantly, your cultural identity as you're applying as an international student. Now, that's the overall, the UC system. Moving on to the third one, which is your My Texas system. The My Texas system is therefore, majority of your universities of Texas. One of the most important ones of them is always the UT Austin one, where you're required to submit an essay that really tells your story in 500 to 700 words. This is quite similar to the common application personal statement, but with slight difference in terms of framing. The UT SAA is more of a narrative focused essay where you'll explain who you are, how you really think, what's important to you. The admissions committee will be looking for insights into your background and interests and passions and what really drives you forward as a person, and not just per se interest in the degree that you may be wanting to do at that level. Now, that's what my Texas typically represents as an application platform. Now, moving across to the other one, MIT. MIT doesn't really require a traditional personal statement per se. It's something which has now become part also of your UK applications. You've got a set of questions, also something very similar to your four PIQs within the UC. So you're going to get five short answer prompt. These responses should be approximately 150 to 250 words each. Right. So now MIT questions are highly specific and focused on your personality, motivations, and how you really approach problems. These questions are an opportunity to show MIT how you really think on a very different way and what is your overall thinking process and how do you reflect upon the important experiences within your life. So, in a summary, while all of these platforms really ask for a personal narrative, the format, the length, and the other various areas may differ. But that platform of asking your personal narratives is what you're typically looking for. So it's really important to you to tailor your personal statement to specific platforms, but really after understanding what is your own personal narrative in a totalitarian way, in its overall sense. Now, moving across to the next part of my section, now we're going to be taking all of the platforms that we have just now discussed across, but discussing them in terms of your format and your restrictions that would be there. So this is also a very important part that we need to look across how they differ from one another. Now, the common application personal statement has a few formatting restrictions that you must really adhere to. Let's go over them and let's make sure that you're ready to have that submitted. So the word count, the essay is limited up to 650 words. While that sounds like quite a lot, it's easy for you to really go over that limit without actually realizing it. Be mindful of that word count, but remember that it's about quality and not quantity. So focus on making each word count as much as you can. Now, formatting is also a bit of an aspect that you need to look at. So the Common App doesn't allow you rich formatting like bold or italics or underlining. The format is really kept simple to focus solely on the content that you'll be typically submitting across, right? So that's the more important aspect when you're going to be looking across at that. Now, apart from that, if you move into your structure, the essay should be very clear, well structured. It should use paragraphs and it should really be able to organize your thoughts. And moving across to submission tips, so I'd really say that, try to write this as much as offline, prepare this as early as possible. Try to have, number of drafts ready before you actually move in and get your final common application done. In terms of UCPIQs, the one that I just mentioned in the previous one, you've required 4 responses with each of them, capped around 350 words, which is a very, very strict cutoff. And they're normally written in a question and answer format. In the other term, UT, Austin, and MIT, the word movement is the words are much higher. You write between 500 to 700 word, and it is much more of a narrative style. On the other side, MIT, it is between 100 to 250 words. Now, as I've again said, don't use a lot of rich formatting. That is not the agenda. And try to really bring the focus to the whole narrative of the story. And some of the most important tips that you can also see on the screen, don't aim for the word count. Really try to see what's the meaning that you're trying to derive by writing those number of words. Use a strategic paragraphing for clarity and flow, right? Making sure that you have gotten that in the right way is very important because that's how, an admission officer will be able to flow through with the argument that you're really trying to put across. And again, as a repetition, really make sure that you are within the word limitation that has been set across. Now, moving across to what is the common application personal statement. So let's just focus on the common application personal statement as of now. So this is a 650 word essay that is submitted to all of your colleges you apply through the common application. It goes across to at least 20 universities if you're going to go, a maximum 20 universities if you go across with the system. Now, here what makes it really special. So it's got the purpose. What's the purpose behind it? The essay serves as an opportunity for you to tell your story. It's not about, let's say, just listing achievements. It's about showcasing your personality, character, and growth. This is your chance to explain the why behind your experiences and how they have really gone on to shape you. What admission officers really want. Admission officers want to see what kind of a person you are. They're looking for authentic stories that show reflection, growth, and insight. They want to understand your values, your motivations, and how you'll contribute to their campus community. Now, this is also something very important to really try to understand what it is actually not. It is important to really look at this document and say, this is not my A, achievement list, which I've already mentioned. B, this is also just not my resume. It's not about going on and just listing every activity that you have done or every brownie point that you have scored. Rather, this is an essay where you can go on to explore one aspect of your life in extreme depth, focusing on how it has really influenced your perspective, has really influenced your existence and ambitions. This is where you can show that you're just way more, or you're a bigger person than just that GPA score that you have submitted, or you represent much more in terms of learning than that 1600 over 1600 that you have submitted. So that's where we really talk about that. It goes on to demonstrate your values, your personality, the growth and perspective. It's a very powerful tool to show how do you really think and what really matters to you on a very personal level. Right? So that's what a whole common application personal statement is. Now it brings us across to what exactly do admission officers look for when they're reading your personal statement. So these are the six things that I have typically tried to put across as a list with my experience that across working with organizations like Crimson or Added, when I had the opportunity to interact with a lot of formal admission officers and all of current admission officers as well. So these are the six things that I really believe are very dear to an admission officer when he's looking at these applications. With the first one really being authenticity. The admissions committee wants to hear your voice. Be genuine and as authentic as possible. Don't try to impress by, using complicated languages or trying to sound like someone age or someone not of your age precisely. The best essays really feel personal and honest. Second point that I'd put across is self-reflection. Try to show how you think about your own experiences. Don't just recount events. Try to explain how they have gone on to shape who you are and what you have learned from those experiences. Demonstrate that self-awareness and, very importantly, the growth that you've had with all of those experiences. Now, that brings us to that third point, the growth and transformation. Admission officers are really looking for this evidence where you have shown that you have grown from the experiences that you have derived, highlights that you have changed, and what lessons you have really learned, and what particularly that you have done to overcome those challenges. That is the real building block of character. Now, at that same point, what it also goes on to show is that fourth point, emotional impact. A good essay should evoke emotion, whether it's empathy, whether it's curiosity, you're thinking in terms of inspiration, in terms of leadership. There has to be an central emotion that comes across. Don't be afraid to be vulnerable. Don't be afraid to come across and say that, this was the time period when I was going wrong. Or don't be afraid to really share those stories that really have that emotional depth about yourself. What's really important that brings us across to that fifth point, that you're coming across with a very strong voice and a very clear set of thinkings. Your essays should be well organized and very easy to read, right? That's a very important part and a mistake that a lot of students go on to make, trying to complicate the whole personal statement to come across and look like someone very highly intellectual. Show that you can really think clearly and communicate your ideas effectively in a very simple way. Try to remember what Einstein said. If you cannot explain your theory to, let's say, a 3-year-old kid, then you yourself haven't understood the theory. That's the idea behind the personal statement. If your personal statement is too complex, even to, for a kid to understand, then there's something wrong in the way that you're trying to explain it. And that's that, eventual part, that deeper understanding of your values. Reveal what really drives you at that end once you have gotten that level of clarity. What really matters to you, and what really all of these two things connects to the future that you really imagine yourself, holding for yourself at that junction. Right. So that is what, overall admission officers are looking for from any of these applications that you're submitting. At this level, regardless of you applying to University of California through their PIQs, or if you're, applying in terms of the MIT, or if you're really even applying for the for your UTs, these six factors are always going to remain the same. regardless in which way do you go on to put across this information. Now, this is one different thing that I want to go across in a little bit of detail, the common application essay prompts. Now, when I'm also calling this the common app essay, I'm still referring to the same document, the common application personal statement. So now the common application provides you 7 prompts for you to choose from. Each are really designed to help you reflect on different aspects of your life. So let's really try to go over, with all of them. You've got this one prompt of background or identity. What defines you? The prompt is ideal for, let's say, exploring your cultural identity, family background, or unique characteristics that have shaped you. Obstacle or failure. What challenged you and what have you really gone on to learn from it? This is really a great platform if you have faced significant challenges or failures that you'd like to represent and you'd like to put across as a learned valuable lesson. Another prompt, the third one, belief or idea. When did you question something? This prompt invites you to really reflect on how you have questioned your beliefs or overall ideas that you have grown across within the society and how those moments have gone on to really shape you. The fourth point, gratitude. Who helped you? How did that actually go on to change you? This one is about showing gratitude and reflecting on people who have really gone on to impact your life in a really positive way. Now, a fifth point, the personal growth. What changed your understanding of yourself? Here you can go on to explore moments where you have really experienced significant personal growth. Another prompt that I would put across, passion or fascination. What topic makes time disappear for you? This prompt is for those who have deep passion or curiosity about a subject and want to explore it in their essay. Now, an open topic with write. So then, as I'll say, then try to write on any topic of your choice. If your story doesn't fit into the previous categories, then this prompt will give you the freedom to really explore whatever is the most, meaningful to you aspect to you. So those are a couple of prompts that I'll really try to put across to you when you're thinking across while writing the common application person statement, specifically because it is one single 650 word essay. They're not divided into 4 different questions. Now moving across, choosing the right prompt, right? So what you need to do, choosing the right prompt is really the key of writing a strong personal statement. So this is how you'd be going across it. You need to identify what has really, let's suppose if you can go on to identify what has really gone on to change your path, what has really shaped your path, you should go across and choose prompt one. If you have got something in which you're talking about in terms of failure, consider prompt two. If you love to really dive deep into various ideas and explore things on a innovative level, prompt 3, prompt 6 can be doing well for you. If your story doesn't really fit as the last prompt to put it across, you go across and do the prompt 7. The key is to pick a prompt that aligns with your personal story. Don't force a fit. It's really the story has to be a very mix of those themes. Prompt 7 is then going to be the option if you're not able to, really find out the kind of prompt that makes the best sense for you. Now, to move across, what makes this personal statement a success, right? And at this level, I'm just using the word essay, regardless of the one that you're going to be using across. These aspects all remain the same, right? Telling a compelling story. Your story should be really meaningful and personal. It should be something that only you could write, right? Make sure that it's authentic, it reflects who you typically are. Try to then reveal a growth and change, as I've said, right? Try to make this authentic. When saying authentic, don't try to sound like someone else. And this is way, don't try to use those wordings that don't come across and fit to you as the right way. At the same time, try to use vivid details. Paint pictures with your words. Use vivid descriptions to help the reader feel like they're really experiencing this activity along with you itself. At that same time, try to reflect on meaning as much as possible, right? Go beyond just describing events. Share what those experiences meant to you and how it has really impacted you in life moving forward. And always try to end with an insight. Leave the reader with a powerful thought of who you're becoming. A strong conclusion will tie your essay together and leave a lasting impression. Right. So those are those various and really important aspects that really go on to make your common application great. Now, before we move on to our own approach, in which I had promised to you that I'll let you know of a nice, really nice passage that I have cherry picked just to highlight how these common application or other essays would typically look across at. But before we do that, just giving you a quick list of common mistakes you should be avoiding. So A, do make sure that you are avoiding lists as possible, right? So the personal statement is not a place where you're going to be just listing all of your extracurriculars and achievement. Instead, try to tell a whole story about yourself. So that's really there. Rewrite your whole overall resume itself. Don't just try to make this a list of activities. Point number two, being overly, polished. Avoid doing that. Authenticity is the key. Admission officers prefer genuine essays over these really polished ones. Be real. Don't try to impress. Just try to connect. The third point is, try to, use your generic topics as much as possible. If you pick up a common topic, make sure your perspective is unique. What makes your story different from everyone else's is going to be, that important thing. Now, moving across to this one point, avoiding vulnerability. Real stories often include struggle and vulnerability. So don't shy away from sharing your challenges and that those difficult moments. Now, another important thing, skipping revision. So that's also one of those major mistakes. Your first draft cannot be your last draft. Your first draft is not going to be perfect. Make sure that you're revising this multiple times over a long period. Try to also make this whole thing a reflective session after every 6 months and rework on it as early as possible and try to have this ready as early as possible. And one of those major mistakes that a lot of students do is neglecting proofreading. Typos, grammar mistakes can really distract you from your message. Always proofread your essays to make sure that you have gotten them at least away from childish kind of errors so you can really go across and show that serious kind of application go through. Just give me a minute, I'll have a sip of water. Right. Now, with the whole description of what a personal statement is, how do we look at it, what its importance, we will move on to the other third part of our session today, which is our own overall approach. Right. So, looking at the approach, we will first start across, as I had said, by showing you a very interesting part of a personal statement, as I said, of a student who went into admission with Stanford, computer science applicant. One of the most important, as per me, the key things that really shined out in his personal statement when he's talking about his extracurriculars was this passage that he had written in terms of sports and very specifically in football. Now, I'm sure a lot of you guys would have already started reading this, and you could just go on to read it. I'll, momently come across and read it across for you. But before I will read this, while you go through this, please pay attention to the next six questions that I'll be putting you across. Because these six questions are the kind of guidelines that created this passage. Right? One of those questions, while you're reading this as well, is why did I do this? What initially did it really drew him into this activity? What problem was the student solving or a curiosity that he was trying to flow? So that's the first one. Why did I do this? What did I learn about myself? The second one. What strength did you discover? Weakness, skill. Third question, what challenges did I face? How did I respond? Fourth would be, how did I impact someone or something? How did this shape how I see the world around me? What values does this reveal about me? So these six questions, and let's now go to the passage. At first, football was something that I did just to stay active, right? So that he's trying to answer, why do I do this? Something that I just did to stay active. Did I do it for win? Did I do it because I was the most exceptional footballer? Did I do it because I wanted to become a professional footballer? None of that. Just wanted to stay fit. But as I moved from defense to midfield and eventually captain, I discovered the power of quiet leadership. What did I learn about myself? The power of quiet leadership. I wasn't the loudest voice in the field, but I was consistent. Again, the new skill that he has looked at himself, the strength that he's looking at himself. And if you see, there's also a weakness that he's very subtly put in there. I wasn't the loudest voice, right? It's a very subtle way to do that. He's trying to show across a challenge. That's the third point. What challenges that he was also facing. Now, what he says you know, that he was consistent at what? Showing up early, encouraging teammates, and taking responsibilities after tough losses. What challenges did I face? That is again a repetition here. Taking responsibility of the tough, losses that they were facing. Now, if you see how this moves on, when I saw a shy junior struggling, I spent weeks helping him with his drills until he found his rhythm. Did he impact someone or something? He remembered the story, he put it across. That's when I realized leadership isn't always about being in the front. How did this shape the world he sees around himself? That he learned something about leadership that's not always about being in the front. It's about lifting others up. Football taught me discipline, empathy, and importance of small moments. And now these lessons is what really shapes him on how he shapes up in every part of his life. What values does this reveal about? Right? What now has he become? So this is, just one part about your personal statement, one activity being described. I haven't picked up a capstone activity. I haven't picked up a vertical stroke. I have just taken a horizontal. But I'm just trying to show how impactful an activity can become, regardless of it being an international level football, international level activity. The thing that is required is how does that activity goes on to define you as the person you are, and that is the crux of the work that we do within Let's Unbound, trying to discover that spark within a student. Now, when we start working with students, this is one of those primary challenges that we've always faced. The input that we look across with students is they have a rough understanding of personalities and interests. Does that really come across to an outcome? Hardly ever. Why? Because 93% of the students or the parents really just know approximately 7 careers that they're looking at. So they're not even looking at their personality and strengths and going out to that overall outcomes that can be created. Parents and students really are then struggling in understanding these complex university applications. I mean, for the last 3 to 4 sessions, we haven't covered all of the factors that go into the common application. And at the same time, there isn't just one common application. There are various different platforms that they're available. So the pathways to top universities eventually is a complicated, but can be simplified if you take this in a very personalized manner. And it is again to also understand when I've given you all of those different platforms, it's not just one recipe that could work across in every different university or application. There are common aspects, but there are things that need to be looked in a different way. So that really brings us that how do we work with a student? So primarily what I want to do is start from the basics, right? Do a psychometric test. Student does come explaining his personality and his interest and his activities, but I will do a psychometric test. We will try to understand the student's profile, his narratives, his inclinations, and then at that level, we move across to college counseling, right? What then college counseling does is we will try to plot this profile and understand what kind of institute will the student fit into. What kind of degree will he be looking at? College counseling is not deciding list of colleges, right? It is to understand what does the college life look like beyond the grade 12. So that's the part that we move into, which also does incorporate, then moving on to building onto that profile, trying to achieve the targets that we have just set in terms of your college counseling. And in every application here, we move in and help the student in using those various platforms that we are describing in our webinar series, and helping them with those personal statements and essays and activities as we are also just discussing, and move to that stage where they're selecting the college and concluding in terms of the visas. So the outcome in that case then actually becomes an admission, where you have broken down all of the aspects within admissions and have really made sub projects out of the overall project of admissions abroad. Now, moving across, trying to show you the activities that we do, but in a timeline. So I'll just, if you would just follow my mouse or my cursor, it will help you understand how does a student really flow right across. For students who join me, firstly, grade 9, grade 10, early birds to this process, I start with the psychometric. It happens the same with also kids in grade 11. But within kids in grade 9th or 10th, we move into your candidacy building. We want to understand what the strengths that the student has, what interests does the student really drive by. We want to look at different courses. We want to join different clubs. We want to work at different competitions in grade 9s and grade 10s. 11th, we can look at the ones that you've already worked on and try to go in a little bit more detail. But then this is that primary work that happens. Within that session, the third topic that we always pick up, it's called the personal voice of every session, which is the personal statement work, the letters of recommendation work that typically happens. In other sessions, you will be able to understand how the letters of recommendation work. In terms of personal statement, every 6 months, the way we have just described a personal statement is made, we make a student in grade 9 write a personal statement. Obviously, with not the objective that this is the thing that gets submitted. The idea is how well can a student really reflect upon the last 1 year, the last 2 years of activities that he has done. What is the emotion that the student derives from it? What we then tell the student is to continue working in all of those areas, continue gaining those experience, but then after every 6 months, sit down and try to, really put that onto a document of how all of these things have affected you as a person. And that really goes on to solidify that personal statement once you're eventually in your grade 12th year. Now, so that's how your initial grade 9th and 10th look like. Once this kid moves across to your grade 11th or 12th year, we are then moving into your subject selections, right? So all of those kids who join us at the start of grade 11, we sometimes do have this opportunity of basis on our psychometric test, basis on the kind of interest that the student has, we do help them at that last moment to submit that list of subjects. But for all of those students who join us from that previous year of 9th or 10th, by this stage, I have a lot of different information and feedback and reflection of why the student is selecting these set of subjects. And then eventually, because of the set of subjects, you will be one day selecting the major either before applications or during your years in undergrads. It's during your 11th year we will be looking at the finalization of your capstone projects, your major activities. In your 11th, the November, December is when your standardized testing should ideally begin and concluding by the end of your 11th around your March period. Once you move into your 12th, the final draft of your personal statement should be ready, thinking that you have been preparing this from your grade 9th or 10th. Students who join us late, we have a much more mechanical way of working at then your final draft. We create lists, we create activities, we create emotions around it, and try to best represent it. And then at that time period, you initiate your essays. That's your grade 12 year, the start of it, where you have selected the list of universities. Once that is done, you're closing across on your activities, you're closing across the last set of your personal statement. So by the time you hit your time period of September, October, you're only working on the last drafts of your overall essays and personal statements and the overall application. So by 1st of November, you make your application through the early rounds, and the regular rounds then happen between January. And from Jan till March, you will be waiting for the results. And August to September is when the visa application happens. And by September is when you would be then traveling abroad. So this is the overall timeline that any typical student follows. This is to put all of the work that we do into three different pillars, where we have one pillar focused on our mentoring services that we've been doing for a decade now in terms of SAT prep and PSAT and AP preparations and school academics, to the second block that we have now gone on to master, the storytelling, the profile building in terms of leadership, clubs, sports, hobbies, community service, extremely important, is the other aspect that we do. And again, now moving back to admissions prep, this again incorporates a lot of aspects around university selections, helping with your personal statements and essays, letters of recommendations, and all of these various documents. In our following sessions, we will be covering college essays, we will be covering letters of recommendations, and I think we'll go on to cover a few more topics because just having these two within the essay may not be a sufficient amount of agenda to run the whole webinar. But in our following sessions, we will be looking more into these admission preps that we have done so far. we have covered a lot of your overall common application aspects within this common application series. Right. Now, moving across to a few success stories that I would like to share across with you, as we always do. A student that I have briefly worked across with got admitted within Dartmouth universities with a SAT score of 1550. Fantastic kid with distinguished academic research. He went on to win a prestigious essay competition at Oxford. He thrived at national level basketball. At the same time, he founded his own NGO and was a talented solo singer. But overall, it was the way that he narrated the story within the personal statement that got him through with it. Another application for a student that went into Rice, she was the school prefect, the house captain, applied to Rice University, and she pursued a scholarship with women in leadership category. So that's also another success story that I put across. Now, as we always, while ending our sessions, we do inform about the resources that we constantly do share. Every weekend, we do conduct a masterclass session. So the last weekend that we did, we were discussing about the 10 activities. To this weekend, we have now moved across to the personal statement. And for everyone who had registered with us, we do share across documents and notes from the session itself that you could be using across, for future references. Next weekend, we'll be handling another part about common application. Definitely, we'll be covering up letters of recommendation and college essays with a few more topics to make a worthwhile presentation. Now, just quickly moving and showing you the other platforms that we use for information. The newsletters, these are three couple of example of newsletters that you could look at. You could use the QR code at the bottom to scan through and get access. Now, these are two other platforms. One is the podcast one, where we have a few students of ours who speak about in terms of admissions, and the WhatsApp one to connect you to students who are currently looking at admissions in different stages, but around the same challenges as you. Lastly, we do give out a lot of good SAT advisories in terms of also our SAT diagnostic. You could use this QR code to go and register for a SAT diagnostic as well. And we then could move across and give you further support in admissions. For kids that are, typically looking at, again, admissions to top colleges, would like to take notes from my session today, just use this QR code on your screen now to register for a one-on-one, and we will be shortly getting in touch with you and taking all of this information that I've shared to you on one-to-many platform on a one-to-one. We could then also go into detail about any one of these very specific platforms themselves. So that's what I had planned for my session today. Now I'll just be going across to the chat section, right? And I'll be taking questions from you guys. So if there are any questions that you would be having now, you could just drop it across onto the screen itself, onto the chat section, and I would be able to answer them, as best as I can. Right. So just waiting. I'm gonna leave. Then we'll be waiting for the next couple of minutes to see any questions pop up at the chat section. If there are none, so where can you find the recordings of this class? Yeah, so Asami, this we could give it to you one-on-one. So you could just get in touch with our counselor Sabah, right? Sabah will support you in that. I'll give you the recording and we could have this as the one-on-one session as well, Sami. Can you share the WhatsApp community link again? Right, just give me a second. I think I'll just reshare my screen and you'll be able to do so. Just give me a second. Right. So there it is again. You could just take a scan of the QR code here and you'll be able to join into our WhatsApp community. Right. So I think there are no further questions. We can conclude for today. Thank you for joining us. Okay, on the financial part, what will be the total cost? The total cost does vary, but to give you a rough idea, you could be looking anywhere between let's say 1.82 CR, higher side going up to 3 CR, But just to tell you, these are very arbitrary figures. I'll have to sit down with you individually, and then we could have that specific aspect. So, Sam, we could, do this as an individual discussion. I think that will make much more sense. But I've given you the rough bracket of figures that you could look at. Right. So thank you for joining us in the session today. And next weekend, we'll be tackling another part of the common application. Thank you.